The heat in Manila that morning felt thicker than usual, like the air itself was holding its breath. In a small apartment tucked between busy streets and sari-sari stores, the Ramos family gathered around an old wooden table scarred by years of use. Outside, jeepneys roared past in bursts of color and noise. Vendors called out prices for taho and pandesal. But inside, everything was quiet except for the faint hum of a single electric fan. 16-year-old Althea Ramos stood by the window, her fingers trembling slightly as she held her phone. The email glowed on the screen. "We regret to inform you." She swallowed. That one wasn't it. She scrolled. Then she froze. "Congratulations. You have been selected to audition for America's Got Talent in Los Angeles." For a moment, she couldn't breathe. "Ma," she whispered. Her mother, Liza Ramos, looked up from mending her husband's faded polo shirt. Her father, Ernesto, paused mid-sip of instant coffee. 8-year-old Marco, who had been tapping rhythms on the table with spoons, looked up too. Althea's voice broke. "We got in." Silence. Then chaos. Liza covered her mouth, tears spilling instantly. Ernesto stood so fast his chair nearly toppled. Marco jumped onto Althea, nearly knocking the phone from her hand. They had done it. From Manila, to the biggest stage in America. But dreams are beautiful, and expensive. That night, reality settled over the family like a heavy blanket. Airfare, visas, accommodation, food, transportation. Ernesto worked as a mechanic in a small roadside shop. Liza sold homemade kakanin in the neighborhood. Althea taught part-time voice lessons to younger kids after school. Marco helped by performing with his sister in small barangay events. They were talented. They were determined. But they were not rich. "We can try to borrow," Ernesto said quietly, staring at the email printed and placed in the center of the table. Liza shook her head. "Borrowing means debt. Debt means pressure." Althea felt guilt creep into her chest. "Maybe I shouldn't go. Maybe next year." "No," Ernesto said firmly. His voice carried something different that night. "Steel. Opportunities like this don't knock twice. We will find a way." And they did. The barangay organized a small fundraiser. Neighbors donated what they could. 20 pesos, 50, sometimes just applause and encouragement. A local bakery sponsored a mini concert. Althea and Marco performed Filipino classics, Broadway medleys, and even an English pop mashup that left the small crowd cheering. Videos of their performance were uploaded online. Within days, shares multiplied. Filipino siblings heading to AGT. Comments poured in from OFWs around the world. "We're proud of you. Show them what Filipinos can do." Money trickled in through donations. Not enough at first, but slowly, steadily, hope began to outweigh fear. Weeks later, at Ninoy Aquino International Airport, the Ramos family stood together, holding 2 medium-sized suitcases and 1 oversized dream. Althea looked back at Manila through the glass walls of the terminal. "Ready?" Marco asked, grinning. She smiled. "Ready." The plane ride felt unreal. Marco pressed his face against the window, gasping at the clouds. Liza prayed softly with a rosary in her hand. Ernesto studied a crumpled itinerary as if memorizing every detail could prevent something from going wrong. When they landed in Los Angeles, the world felt bigger. Louder. Faster. Skyscrapers replaced jeepneys. English filled the air in accents they weren't used to. Even the smell was different. Less fried garlic, more gasoline and perfume. The next day, they stood backstage at America's Got Talent. Bright lights, massive screens, crew members rushing around with headsets, contestants warming up in every corner, magicians, dancers, comedians, contortionists. Althea's heart pounded so loudly she feared the microphones would pick it up. "Number 247, the Ramos family," a producer called. "That's us," Marco whispered. They walked onto the stage. The theater was enormous. Rows upon rows of seats. Cameras like mechanical eyes staring at them. And at the center, the judges' table. Behind it sat the familiar faces they had only seen on YouTube clips and Facebook shares. Simon Cowell leaned forward, studying them with calm intensity. Sofia Vergara smiled warmly. Heidi Klum waved. Howie Mandel adjusted his glasses. Althea's knees felt weak. Simon spoke first. "Hello. And who are you?" Althea stepped closer to the microphone. "Good evening. We are the Ramos family from Manila, Philippines. The audience cheered at the mention of their homeland. Sophia's eyes lit up. From the Philippines. That's amazing. Yes, ma'am, Marco said proudly. We flew all the way here. Simon tilted his head. And what are you going to do for us today? Althea glanced at her parents standing slightly behind them. We're going to sing, she said. But it's more than just a song. It's our story. Simon raised an eyebrow slightly. All right, good luck. The lights dimmed. The first notes began. Soft piano, gentle and haunting. Althea started alone. Her voice was clear, trembling at first but quickly finding strength. She sang about leaving home, about sacrifice, about hope stitched into worn-out dreams. The theater grew silent. Marco joined in the second verse, his young voice surprisingly powerful. Together, they blended in harmony that felt almost unreal. Then something unexpected happened. Halfway through the song, the music shifted. A traditional Filipino kulintang rhythm blended into the orchestration. The melody swelled. Ernesto stepped forward with a guitar. Liza added soft harmonies that wrapped around the siblings like warmth. It wasn't just a performance. It was a family, on stage, united. The audience leaned forward. Althea's final note soared, high, sustained, filled with emotion that carried every fundraiser, every sacrifice, every whispered prayer. When the music stopped, there was half a second of silence. Then the theater erupted, a standing ovation. Marco's eyes widened. Althea felt tears spill down her cheeks. The judges stood too. Simon, usually composed, nodded slowly. Sophia wiped her eyes. Heidi clapped above her head. When the cheers finally settled, Simon leaned toward the microphone. You know, he began, we see a lot of singers. A lot, but what makes you different is that I believed every single word. Althea swallowed. He continued. It wasn't perfect. There were small nerves in the beginning. But that, he gestured toward them, that was heart. Sophia leaned in. You made me miss my family tonight. Heidi smiled warmly. It felt authentic, real. Howie nodded. And the arrangement, bringing your culture into it. Brilliant. Althea squeezed Marco's hand. Then Simon paused. And I think, America is going to love you. The audience cheered again. Let's vote. Yes. Sophia shouted immediately. Yes. Heidi added. Yes. Howie said. Simon waited just a second longer. Then he smiled slightly. Yes. 4 yeses. Althea covered her face, sobbing. Marco jumped into her arms. Ernesto hugged Liza tightly as confetti cannons burst above them. But the journey was far from over. As weeks passed, the Ramos family became a viral sensation. Clips of their audition flooded social media. Filipino communities across the United States rallied behind them. Messages poured in from Canada, Dubai, London. You represent us. You remind us of home. With each round, the pressure increased. In the judge cuts, they performed an upbeat medley mixing English pop with a Filipino folk song. The choreography was sharper, the harmonies tighter. But backstage, Althea felt fear creeping in. What if we disappoint them? She whispered one night in their small rented apartment. Liza held her daughter's face gently. You already made us proud the moment you stepped on that stage. During the live shows, the theater felt even bigger. This time, they chose a stripped-down ballad dedicated to overseas workers who leave their families behind. As they sang, photos of Filipino workers appeared on the screen behind them: nurses, seafarers, domestic helpers, engineers. The audience grew emotional again. Simon watched with folded hands, unusually still. When the final note ended, even the host seemed speechless. Voting opened nationwide. The next night, they stood on stage awaiting results. Lights flickered. Dramatic music played. The next act going through to the finals is a pause long enough to stop hearts. The Ramos family. Screams. Cheers. Hugs. From Manila to the finals of America's Got Talent. For the finale, they decided to go all out. Original song. Full orchestration. Filipino instruments fused with modern pop. Backup dancers representing different regions of the Philippines. Before going on stage, Ernesto gathered them in a small circle. No matter what happens, he said, voice thick with emotion, we came here together. We stand here together. We go home together. They nodded. The finale performance was electric. Althea's confidence radiated. Marco's voice rang with youthful power. Liza and Ernesto anchored the performance with warmth and strength. The stage lit up in gold and blue. When the last note hit, fireworks exploded above them. The crowd rose once more. Even Simon stood slowly, clapping with visible respect. Results night felt surreal. They stood among magicians, dancers, and other singers, all incredibly talented. Third place was announced. Second place. Then silence. And the winner of this season of America's Got Talent is. The world seemed to stop. The Ramos family. Althea gasped. Marco screamed. Liza dropped to her knees. Ernesto covered his face, overcome. Confetti rained down like golden snow. They hadn't just won a competition. They had carried Manila's heart across an ocean, and the world had embraced it. Later, during interviews, Simon was asked what made them special. He answered simply, "They reminded us why we watch this show." Talent, yes, but more importantly, family. Months later, back in Manila, the airport was packed. Crowds waved Philippine flags. News cameras flashed. Children held handmade signs reading, "Welcome home, Ramos family." Althea stepped out first. The Manila heat wrapped around her again, but this time, it felt like an embrace. Marco whispered, "We did it, 8. She smiled. "No," she corrected gently. "We all did. From a small apartment with one electric fan to the brightest stage in America. From borrowed money to $1 million prize. From Manila to the world. And through it all, one thing remained unchanged. They never stopped singing together."